Well,
Kind
right
of where we're
now
at.
we got a situation where Michigan has got close to 10%. The two highest unemployment figures I think I remember are Rhode Island and Michigan. And they're
Hmm.
two states that I love. I like them all, but those are states I've had some great times in, and I'm concerned about uh, you as a social scientist. What is your take on what goes on for people when they're faced with such crisis? I mean, are you out talking to people? Do you get a sense that there's something happening with the social, political, economic consciousness of the people, given the stress that they've been under, not only from the mayoral situation in Detroit, the unemployment situation, from the auto industry, the talk about General Motors, this big power for many years that
Hmm.
we dissed, and all of a sudden we're hoping some of us are hoping they can make it through. What's
Yeah,
your
in
sense of
some kind
that?
of form.
And the other thing I wanted you to touch on is how will Michigan redefine itself if the auto industry goes down?
Well, okay. The governor. Going to the last question first. The governor, and I think has a good vision, which is sort of aligned with the vision expressed by the president, which is, to realign, to maintain the strength of Michigan and Detroit in terms of engineering and manufacturing, but to maybe shift it in a new direction, in this sort of new green direction. So there's that whole sort of possibility of green technology, because we do have actually a large reservoir of engineering talent, which may a lot of whom may soon be out of work, right? Or if they're not already. So you've got that, and you've got great universities. You got the University of Michigan, which I am part of, right? And you've got Michigan State, which is actually a great agricultural land grant university, and Wayne State University, which is a great urban university. So I mean, I think they're trying to shift us more towards a kind of a knowledge research economy with the green element. Now, what I'm interested in is the possibility of food, and in particular urban farming, and the possibility of maybe being
Yeah.
able to take urban farming to scale with some kind of real resources, because you have the land in Detroit. A lot of big cities, land costs too much to be able to, raise food, intensively in urban areas. But that's not the case in Detroit. And we also have, and my particular vision here is because I do a certain amount of work with like ex-addicts, recovering addicts, and prisoners. And we have a lot of prisoners in Detroit. That's another thing. In Michigan, we lead the country in percentage of imprisoned population, right? And a lot of these folks are from Detroit, for reasons which maybe don't need to be said. And a lot of them are coming back, actually, because the prisons have to shrink. They cost way too much.
Right.
So people are being sent back after their minimum sentences are done. They're going to be sending more and more people back. A large percentage of those people are going back to Detroit. Well, what are you going to do with these guys and women, right? So my sort of like dream plan is to bring together like foodie culture, urban agriculture, and then like structured sort of recovery reentry programs, because it seems like every recovery reentry program that I talk to, they always have a culinary program. It's like it's like a staple, a standard.
Yeah,
Right?
you're right.
And in the prisons, they always have a culinary program. So I mean, if you could bring like this kind of new foodie culture, the new locavore, gourmet, local this, local that. Uh, to me, the problem is that right now, and this is what I've started looking at the article too, is that foodie culture basically caters to the same kind of a demographic as always, right? It's like it's like you're fighting over the same sort of bubble of fairly enlightened kind of eaters, right?
Right.
The question is, can you do like what Ford did for the automobile to like high quality food? Can you make it like a thing that the mass of people are sort of invested in and also get something out of, right? So if you make it something that pays, right, that people can get involved in and actually make money producing food and foster the culture of food in the same place, like in Detroit, where you've got great agricultural areas to the east, to the west, to the north, with the thumb, with the western Michigan, and with Ontario, really productive agricultural areas, foster intensive agriculture, food culture inside Detroit, where you've got the space, and incentivize it, the way, we incentivize all sorts of other things, right? Maybe we could, have a kind of a new model for Detroit, and then couple that with the knowledge, green, medical health research economy that's sort of is kind of there already, but is needs, so to me, that's like the positive direction. The negative direction is the past continues to drag us down, and I'm not just talking about the auto industry, but the racial past, which is a major element of the landscape in Detroit and everywhere. And that's why, in a sense, I think the problem of Detroit is really the problem of the United States. It's really the problem of the 21st century. And if you can solve it there, or do you at least make a difference, make some kind of positive steps, I think the potential for that will echo way beyond Michigan and Detroit.
You
and
know,
the whole Midwest, actually, I think, is in this together, really, if you think about it.
You're warming the cockles of my heart, as they sort of say.
All right, I'm going to reach over there.
The idea of urban agriculture and growing more food and putting people to work, this is obviously a really important growth area, and then tying that to healthcare. These are real important issues and ideas, and I'm sure we'll be talking about them much more. We're going to run out of time. I'd just like to ask you finally, Paul Draus, professor at University of Michigan, Dearborn, sociologist. What's your sense of your students? Real shortly, you got about 30 seconds. You have kids in class. Where are they at? What are they feeling?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I didn't deal with the question, your first question about the impact of the layoffs and everything. And I see it mostly.
That's why I ask it again.
Right, mostly with my students, because I actually have students who are former Ford employees and things like that took the buyouts. They were actually lucky enough to leave when they could still get a buyout. Now they're not even getting buyouts, right? But a lot of them are I got to get out of Michigan, frankly. Some of them are like that. A lot of them are very rooted people. These are people that are basically local. We're a commuter campus. And so, they're going to kind of stick it out, and, whatever happens, happens. It's sort of like if you've been beaten on for this long, it's almost like, well, what's a little more going to do, right? I mean, I think there's a little bit of that, too. It's like, so you can't really take us down too much more,
Well,
so, I mean, I
they're
think
fighters.
there's a certain, they are, and there's that spirit. There's that spirit in Detroit. Like I said, it's a little
Let's
different.
have a big round of applause for Paul Draus.
Always a blessing, my brother. Always a blessing.
It's great to have you back on Live from the Heartland. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank my producer, Laura Herman. I want to thank our on-site engineers, Chris Colgan and Matt Cordenoy, our videographer, Evan West, our engineer at the studio, Susan Dunn. And I want to thank my co-hosts, Katie Hogan and Lisa Smith, who will be here next week with another edition of Live from the Heartland. I want to encourage you to go to, I just want to encourage you to do good in the world, because the world needs all the good that you do. This is Michael James for all of us with Live from the Heartland, saying all power to the people, over and out.